Okay, this is an example of an actual case study that I did for business consulting. Now, this is my dad's business actually. So my dad owns his own practice as a doctor, as a pain physician. So if you're in Orlando and you have terrible pain, go see him, Orlando Pain Centers of Excellence. But this is a consult I did for my dad as he was talking to me about his business and some of the ways that he wanted to bring it up to speed, because he's doing, excellent business, he's doing well in cash flow and everything. But he wanted to ask me, okay, Ralston, if you were to give me consulting advice, what would you say? This is my business. I would say this is the biggest problem. So we talked about how his biggest problem was probably his time, how he works 60 hours a week, mainly him, and how so much of his time is filled with not really the things he wants to deal with, right? Like, you got to think, for any particular business, particularly a doctor's office, there's a different numbers of procedures, different number of jobs that the doctor has. Now, his primary time fill was spent on med refills. 60% of his time was med refills and epidurals, which are pretty simple practices in terms of being a pain physician. Versus what he wanted to do was high value specialized procedures. Now, this is what my dad specializes in, right? And this is only 15% of what his time was. So this is a huge discrepancy here between something that is making the business money, but it's not really optimized. 60% was spent here, 15 on what he actually wanted to do that would really drive value, that would help the most people, that would provide the most drastic change in people's lives. And that's only 15%, because it's not only about the money, but only 15% was really being used on specialized procedures and such as spinal cord stimulators, kyphoplasties, that really change the outcomes in people's lives. So, this is what we had to address. How do we change this 60% so we can flip these two, right? And even 15%, it's hard to make this the 60 just because of the logistics on this. But there is a way where you can even these out, right? These are some general business principles that I guess I applied to understand this concept and how we got here. So one example we saw in his business was busy does not mean optimized. I mean, he's literally working 60, 65 hours a week nonstop. He works Saturdays. He's stretching himself as thin as he can. So he's at the capacity of the business, and the capacity is him and his office right now, because all the existing staff he has, they're literally seeing the maximum amount of patients they can see, right? And so busy's not optimized because he's busy, he's filling up his time, he's doing everything he can to seem to make it work, but it's not optimized because of this ratio right here. You have 60% of basically low value added time versus 15%. That's where the really high value is coming from, right? So how do we fix this discrepancy? And obviously, this is simple. You want to highlight your highest value work, right? And so when I was working through this problem with my dad, I was like, okay, well, what's the number one bottleneck we have in the business right now? And it's capacity. He doesn't have enough employees to help relieve some of this pressure. So I helped him set up a LinkedIn job posting, and now we're looking to get a PA or an APN, which is someone who can do the very basic low value work, right? Take some of this time from med refills, which helps allow him to try and push for these more, right? Now, this is very important. So this is currently at 15%, and every patient he gets that has one of these high-end procedures, he sees them, there needs to be a higher priority on this. These people need to get priority scheduling. They need to be cycled through a totally different funnel than these people are, because their value is literally 70, 80% more. So if you increase this 5% in terms of volume, you really increase revenue by 20, 30%, versus if you increase this 5%, you increase revenue 2 or 3%. So your high value specialized procedures, whatever that work is for you as an owner, as a boss, you have to try and optimize this as much as possible and delegate this as much as you can. And in a service business such as, something as simple as a doctor, it's like my dad didn't go to business school. He doesn't really know all these concepts, even though it's very straightforward. So the first step was finding and hiring new help to help transfer some of this workflow onto other people. Now, I think this is where the real key is. He had to look at this 15% and say, okay, how can we drive this 15% to 20, 25%? Because there are less of these patients. That's why he only does 15% of them. There's just less of these patients. There's less of these, like, you know, kind of people that need these kind of services done. So how does he specialize his medical practice into this lane? So what we did is, okay, we identified what is the number one lead path for these people right now. And it's referrals from neurosurgeons, from other orthopedic doctors, from other doctors, right? So it's not primarily through generic ad spend. It's not through, you know, just word of mouth. It's primarily through other doctor referrals. And so I was following up with my dad. I was like, what kind of system do you have to keep up with these doctors to try and gauge how many referrals you're actually getting, to actually see, okay, maybe you could get to know more doctors, get more referrals. And this is where he was kind of lacking in knowledge of this, because his time is being completely filled. He's completely busy. He's maxed out in managing, versus if he had delegated this to someone else's job, and their whole job was to follow up with high-end referrals, meet and greet 10 doctors a week that could help refer this and drive this number up, then his number could literally go from 15 to 20 to 25 in less than, in less than a year, in less than 6 months even. And so this is where it comes down to up here. Organize and optimize. So we had to look at these numbers and be like, okay, how do we better organize the workflow? Because his employees don't know this is what's driving all the value for the business. It's not, this is what almost all the business operations consist of, right? But this is what's really driving the value. So the business is organized for this when it should be organized and optimized around this, right? And so we had to go in and look at, okay, we have to assign someone's job, literally one person's job is this in particular, to go around to track referral networks. So after you refer a patient to my dad or whatever, he treats them. It's one of these procedures. There is follow-up with the referee or the doctor who sent the patient in. So they know how the procedure went. They know how the patient is. They know all this stuff. And there's a personalized thank you from my dad, right? And so then there's a connection between these two, right? And this is someone's entire job, and they're going out and they're meeting more doctors, and they're making sure his relationship with the percent that's driving this 15 are good, right? And so then you can literally change this number to 2025. The whole point I'm making here is you have to increase your most valuable lead flow. And this goes to the point earlier when we were breaking down the 5 functions of business. If your margin is better than your competitors, which comes from your most valuable lead flow, generating more of these sales where you make more money per sale, per client, whatever, you will literally be able to scale your business so much more effectively because you'll be able to hire better help, you'll be able to advertise more, you'll be able to even scale your business more because you'll be able to expand operations more because you have more free cash flow to allow that. Free cash flow is the lifeblood of the business. Lifeblood of the business. So it's like, you have to look at this and try and optimize as much as you can. And if possible, make it either your job or one of your employees' jobs to try and monitor this and to work at driving your most productive workflow, your most productive work action as much as possible, and make it someone's like full-time job. So that way you have numbers to be measurable, you have numbers to be like goals to reach, and you can monitor this because all the actions you're taking disproportionately affect your profits and disproportionately affect your business. So it's what is the greatest single action, single job you can do with your time to change your revenue outlook, your business outlook. And for him, that was driving this number, hiring out other people to help decrease the workflow here so that he's less busy, more optimized, and doing more of what he cares about so he can see more people and help more people. I mean, this will literally, if this number grows, to 20-30%, which it definitely could, through specialized outreach and this being someone's full-time job to follow up, have organized reports every time, and to go see more doctors to get this referral number up. I mean, it could literally go to 20-30%. His revenue goes up 4 or 5 times what this number would be. So that just shows how, if you guys are looking to break down a business, you should really try and optimize and look at, okay, what is the thing really driving value? What are my core competencies and core functions of the business? What am I missing? How can I evaluate it? So this is an example. I would love to try and help your business totally free. I'll send my email in the comments below. I would love to connect with you guys and hear how you're doing and maybe some of the struggles and such of your business. But I would love to meet with you guys one-on-one, and we'll make a video of it. I'll do a free, absolutely free consult of what the biggest problem of your business is, right? Biggest bottleneck. And then I'll do a free solution roadmap to build you guys out a strategy for that year to how to address your biggest bottleneck and how to grow and scale your business, make it more profitable, increase revenue, and just increase what you guys are doing. Thank you so much. Talk to you in the next one.